You know, we said at a basement fire, there's always going to be at least two hose lines needed, the basement and the floor above. And at a basement fire, there's always going to need to be at least two doors considered, and that's going to be the door to the first or upper floors and to the basement, right? If there is a basement access, right? So when you're on the truck, I think that you've got to kind of first consider, where does that engine want to go, right? I mean, if the engine did its size up and it found a walkout basement on the rear, well, then your priority is going to be to make sure that that engine can get in the rear, right? So your first job, usually on the first new truck, I mean, I can't speak for every department, but where I've come up on the truck companies, my job is to get the engine in. So I've got to really be paying attention to that 360, be paying attention to where the engine is taking its line. That's another thing that we talk about in our programs. It's something we do in my department is, you know, I'm a fan of the engine company verbalizing where they're taking their attack line. You know, hey, engine 3 is stretching a 250 to the basement on side Charlie. Because if you hear that on the radio, not only does that do great things for the incident commander and the other engine companies, but if I'm running the irons on the first in truck, then now I think, okay, I got to get to that rear, get to that basement entrance, and make sure that the engine can get in there, right? Now one thing I was brought up in, again, you know, as a firefighter in Washington, D.C., our first in ladder company went to side Alpha, and our second in ladder company went to side Charlie. And one of the things that I was always taught, I think on day one on Tower 3, was if we run second due and we're going to the rear, bring a saw with you, right? And, you know, that's an alley-based city, as you can kind of see at this particular fire here, and this is actually a short alley. But there's two good mindsets to this, and it might not even be just about the saw. Maybe it's a different tool in your area. My point being is that if you're going to the rear of a building, whether you're running around the back of the house or whether you got to run down an alley, the further you're going from your fire truck, the more proactive you want to be in bringing things. Now, you don't want to be loaded down like a pack mule where you can't move or you're exhausted when you get there, but I would much rather run down that alley with the saw and not need it and use it as a big door chock than I would get down there and say, oh crap, I got an iron gate back here and I didn't bring the saw, right? So whether it's fences or gates or whatever, or whether it's the saw or another tool, you know, the more you go away from the fire truck, the more cautious you ought to be and make sure that you bring anything that you think you might need to accomplish that objective of getting us in. You know, if this is a working fire, people are going to be stacking up behind you here, right? Whether it's other firefighters or whether it's the hose line, everybody's waiting on you to get the door open so they can go into the party, right? So you're at the bottom of the steps, you got this concrete wall that's taller than you, around you, people are stacking up on the steps. What are going to be the conditions when that door opens, right? You know, is it going to be nothing like this, or fire and smoke going to come rolling out of there, right? Because what you got to be aware of is if you pop that door and fire comes rolling out of there, how you getting out of the way, right? You know, if guys are jammed up on those stairs. So a couple things to consider, right? Number one, use awareness. Don't jam yourself up. Don't get a log jam on those stairs and get those guys stuck down there. And number two is if you're forcing that door to work and fire, I would highly consider making sure you have all your stuff on, gloves, mask, hood, everything, so that you're ready to rock, because when that door opens, you could very well get a face full of conditions and not have any way to get out, you know, and not have any time to be able to get that stuff on, right? So